Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachayine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Dishatayine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachayine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Dishatayine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare
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 Krishna,
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gora Hari Bo. Or Premanandi, Hare Hari Bo. So welcome, dear devotees. Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining us. Before we start tonight's class, I'm also going to sing another bhajan, the Jai Anilo prayers. So I see we have them on screen. So we'll just sing those and we'll have a little discussion. We're singing this in honor of Jayadev Goswami. Today is his Tirobhav. Yesterday was also the Avirbhav, the appearance day of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. So we'll begin. Jayanila Premadana Karuna Prachu Jayanila Premadana Karuna Prachu Jayanila Premadana Karuna Prachu Jayanila Premadana Karuna Prachu Heno Prabhu Kota Kela Pachaya Thaku Heno Prabhu Kota Kela Pachaya Thaku Heno Prabhu Kota Kela Saragunata Patita Pama Kahamura Bata Juga Kahakaviraj Kahamura Bata Juga Kahakaviraj Kahamura Bata Juga Kahakaviraj Kahamura Bata Juga Kahakaviraj Ekakale Kota Gela Koranatara Ekakale Kota Gela Koranatara Ekakale Kota Gela Koranatara Ekakale Kota Gela Koranatara Pashane Kuti Mata Anale Pashibo 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 Koranga Gunera Nidhi Kotakele Pabo 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 Se Saba Sangira Sange Che Koila Vilas Se Saba Sangira Sange Che Koila Vilas Se Saba Sangira Sange Che Koila Vilas Se Saba Sangira Sange Koila Vilas Se Sangana Paya Kande Naratamada 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Shri Jai Nanda Dev Goswami Tribal Mahotava Ki Jai. So we'll just read a translation of the bhajan we just sang. Uh, so, first verse is He who brought the treasure of divine love and was filled with compassion and mercy. Where has such a personality as Srinivasacharya gone?
Where are my Sarup Damodar and my Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen?
And where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopala Bhatta? And where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? And where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go?
I will smash my head against the rock and enter the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities?
Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all these devotees, in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. So, Hare Krishna. Good evening, everybody. Hare Bol. Wonderful to see everybody online. Attendance here. So we're going to be honoring both Jayadev Goswami, whose disappearance is today, and also we're going to be hopefully have some time later on during our discussion, our class today, to speak a little bit also about Gopal Bhatta Goswami, whose appearance day was yesterday. So we'll just chant a little invocation and then we'll read the shlok and purport. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshu Unmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Sadivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishikam Vidamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Godangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Virishabhanu Sute Devi Prananami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripasindubhya evacha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrihinda. So we'll be reading a nice verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 13, verse 42. Vidyapati Jayadeva Chandidasera Gita Ashwadena Ramananda Swarupa Sahita. Translation. The Lord used to read the books of Vidyapati, Jayadev, and Chandidas, relishing their songs with his confidential associates like Sri Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Abhay Chanavinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. Vidyapati was a famous composer of songs about the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. He was an inhabitant of Mathila, born in a Brahmin family. It is calculated that he composed his songs during the reign of Shiva Simha and Queen Lakshmi Devi in the beginning of the 14th century of the Shaka era, almost 100 years before the appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The 12th generation of Vijapati's descendants is still living. Vijapati's songs about the pastimes of Lord Krishna express intense feelings of separation from Krishna. And Sri Krishna Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, relished all those songs in his ecstasy of separation from Krishna. Jayadev was born during the reign of Maharaj Lakshmana Sena in Bengal in the 11th or 12th century of the Shaka era. His father was Bojadev and his mother was Vamadevi. For many years he lived in Navadvip, then the capital of Bengal. His birthplace was in the Birbhum district in the village of Kendubilva. In the opinion of some authorities, however, he was born in Orissa, and others say that he was born in southern India. He passed the last days of his life in Jagannath Puri. One of his famous books is Gita Govinda, which is full of transcendental mellow feelings of separation from Krishna. The gopis felt separation from Krishna before the rasa dance, as mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Gita Govinda expresses such feelings. There are many commentaries on Gita Govinda by many Vaishnavas. Chandidas was born in the village of Nanura, which is also in the Birbhum district of Bengal. He was born of a Brahmin family, and it is said that he also took birth in the beginning of the 14th century of the Shakabda era. It has been suggested that Chandidas and Vijapati were great friends because the writings of both express the transcendental feelings of separation profusely. The feelings of ecstasy by Chandidas and Vijapati were actually exhibited by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He, namely Mahaprabhu, relished all those feelings in the role of Srimati Radharani. And his appropriate associates for this purpose were Sri Ramananda Roy and Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami. These intimate associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu helped the Lord very much in the pastime in which he felt like Srimati Radharani. Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments in this connection that such feelings of separation as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enjoyed from the books of Vijapati, Chandidas, and Jayadev are especially reserved for persons like Sri Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar, who were Paramahamsas, men of the topmost perfection. Because of their advanced spiritual consciousness, such topics are not to be discussed by ordinary persons, imitating the activities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. For critical students of mundane poetry and literary men without God consciousness who are after bodily sense gratification, there is no need to read such high standard of transcendental literature. Persons who are after sense gratification should not try to imitate Raganuga devotional service. The songs of Chandidas, Vijapati, and Jayadev describe the transcendental activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mundane reviewers of these songs simply help people in general become debauchees, and this leads only to social scandals and atheism in the world. One should not misunderstand the pastimes of Radha and Krishna to be the activities of a mundane boy and girl. The mundane sexual activities of young boys and girls are most abominable. Therefore, those who are in bodily consciousness and who are desire sense gratification are forbidden to indulge in the discussions of the transcendental pastimes of Sri Radha and Krishna. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum mangai tekidam yakripatam vahamvade Shri Guru Dinata. So I'm just going to read the verse again and maybe discuss a little bit some of the points. Vijapi Jayadeva Chandidasera Gita Aswadena Ramananda Swarupa Sahita. The Lord used to read the books of Vijapati, Jayadev, and Chandidas, relishing their songs with his confidential associates like Sri Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar Goswami. Hare Krishna. So, in this chapter, this section, is giving us a quick scroll through of all of Mahaprabhu's pastimes. It's describing the birth of the Lord, but then describing his different activities throughout his manifest pastimes. And of course, we know that uh, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared as the son of Sachidev, Sachimata, and Jagannath Mishra. He has he was a precocious child. There's some beautiful pastimes in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, how he would, uh, uh, sometimes a Brahmin would come to make an offering, and he would accept that offering. He would eat that offering. And so the Brahmin would have to cook again, thinking that this family's young boy had stolen what he was going to offer to Krishna as boga, then hopefully to become. So he tried again, and somehow little Vishwambar, little Nimai, was always stealing that prasadam. And then he revealed that he was actually none other than the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, this particular sadhu's or Brahmin's Ishta Devata, and that he was accepting his offerings. And then, of course, as Mahaprabhu then became a great pundit, and then, of course, he took initiation and exhibited all great ecstatic qualities. And then he accepted a renounced order of life and traveled all throughout India, preaching the cult of Krishna consciousness. And then, towards the end of his manifest pastimes, rather than being in a preacher mode of trying to convince others of Krishna consciousness, he himself resided in the Gambhir in Jagannath Puri, where he would cultivate these deep moods of separation and immerse himself in his bhajan. And in the mornings, he would go to the Tota Gopinath Mandir in the company of Gadadhar Pandit and hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Gadadhar Pandit. And he would hear all the pastimes of Bhagavatam, not just the 10th canto of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, but the teachings of Dhruva, the pastimes of Prahlad Maharaj, all these pastimes of Bhagavatam, he would relish with Gadadhar. And then he would return to the Gambhir, this dwelling place. And if you go there, I mean, he was a very tall person, large boned, descriptions of Mahaprabhu. And it's a tiny little room that he was in. But Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy would read passages from these exalted literatures. And in this way, Mahaprabhu would cultivate this deep mood of separation from Krishna. And his ecstasy would intensify and intensify. So this is not an ordinary literature that Jayadev Goswami had presented. And of course, we have these personalities. Chandidas, Vijapati, and Jayadev were understood the essence of the Bhagavatam. Most commentators did not even dwell into these most esoteric pastimes. But Jayadev, somehow he and Chandidas and Vijapati understood. And some of the things that we were writing about were very unprecedented for that time. There's a beautiful pastime where Jayadev, he was residing, I think he was composing while residing in Navadvip, in that place that was described earlier in the purport. And he was, of course, writing about the separation mood of the gopis and Krishna, and particularly the separation mood of Man. Srimati Radharani was in a very angry mood with Krishna, and Krishna was not able to break her man. She was angry with him, she was sulking, he could not somehow move her heart. So he had this idea, and he, of course, was greatly inspired to compose a particular verse which describes how Krishna will lay his head at her feet to break her man. To break, the verse is Smara Gala Kandanam, Mama Sharishi Mandanam, Dehi Pada Palavam Udaram. So he had this inspiration to compose these words, but he was thinking, this is even beyond what I can even understand. I don't know. This a speculation or is this inspiration from Krishna? So he was contemplating it, and he thought, better for me just to step away from the paper and pen. I'll take my midday bath, and then I'll come back and then I'll somehow it will come revealed to me. So he told his wife Padmavati, I'm going to go bathe, take my midday bath, and I'll come back. Shortly a while later, he appeared to have returned, and his wife thought, "Oh, well, you're back so soon." Said, "Yes, I needed to write something down." So he appeared to have written the verse down, accepted the lunch prasad, and said, "I need to step out again." She goes, "Okay." That was actually Krishna. Krishna had appeared to compose that particular verse with his own hand. So the real Jayadev returned home. And of course, having already served her husband lunch, or what she thought she had served her husband his lunch, she began to take her meal, right? And he thought, "What is this? You're, this is unusual. Normally, you take your lunch after I do." She goes, "Yes, you came home, you wrote something in the book, and you had your lunch, and then you stepped out again, and you came back very quickly. I don't understand." And then Jayadev went, saw that the verse was handwritten by the Lord, and he realized that the Supreme Personality of Godhead had appeared in his home, accepted his wife's cooking, and his wife was now honoring the prasad of Lord Sri Krishna. So not an uh, ordinary text. This describes a very intimate mood. And so this type of literature that he composed, of course, there is the Dash Avatar Shrotam that we chant a portion of when we offer our prayers to Lord Nishingadev. And there's Shrita Kamala, which is also a beautiful poem that devotees don't sing so much anymore, but they sing quite a bit. There's a lot of early recordings in our ISKCON of the Shrita Kamala prayers. Uh, but the Gita Govinda itself is in the category of uh, uh, rasa, rasatmika. There are two types of literatures that our acharyas compose: the vicharatmika and rasatmika. So vichara means like preaching for those who are on the path towards the perfection in Krishna consciousness. Let's say the Upadesh Amrit, the six Sandarbhas of Jiva Goswami, Hari Bhakti Vilas. These are literatures which are meant to help guide those of us who are conditioned and bound by illusion to become free from that and attain perfection in life. But Rasatmika literatures, like the Gita Govinda, Govinda Lilamrit, Ujjwala Nilamani, these very advanced literatures are meant for those who can relish and deeply appreciate these topics, having become freed from any type of material conception, uh, uh, beyond the bhajan kriya, beyond anartha nividiti, becoming free from these misconceptions, free from material desires. Why? Because the nature of the mind is to try to according to our experience and realization of this world. Uh, we have experiences uh, of romance, of heartbreak in this world, and so forth. But we should not read the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. But of course, by hearing these pastimes, we become purified of those misconceptions. That is the paradox. So Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, it's also said that we should read the first 9 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam before we can truly appreciate the 10th canto. But Srila Prabhupada also wrote the Krishna book, which is the 10th canto, with his commentary woven throughout. So in this way, we get to hear about all these pastimes of Radha and Krishna, but in a way that we can appreciate and that is purifying for our consciousness. So this is the glory of Jayadev Goswami, that he had the opportunity to serve the Lord. He was serving Krishna and the Vaishnava community by composing this most beautiful, profound, and deep literature of the Gita Govinda. And the Lord was so pleased that he appeared in his home, that even when he had a doubt, because what he was writing was unprecedented, never considered before, but the Lord said, yes, this is authorized. You are on the right track. And of course, the Lord again also gave Jayadev his mercy centuries later by appearing as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and relishing this beautiful pastime, these beautiful descriptions of the Rasa Leela dance with Krishna, Srimati Radharani, and the gopis. So that's a little bit about Jayadev Goswami. I'd also like to speak a little bit about Gopal Bhatta Goswami. But before I do, does anybody have any questions or comments? Maybe a little bit, open a little space up prior to that. No? Okay. So,
If people wanted to speak, it would take them a while to get
yeah, they can unmute themselves. Yeah. Okay, so we'll continue. So today, of course, is the disappearance day, the Tirobhav of Jayadev Goswami. And yesterday, we observed the appearance day, the birthday of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And of course, we know that Gopal Bhatta Goswami was one of 6 primary disciples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, the acharyas who established the Lord's mission in the Holy Dham, and also established the literatures that became the guidebooks or the law books of the Krishna consciousness movement, based directly on the teachings of Mahaprabhu. So the 6 Goswamis were 2-3 generations of personalities. Of course, Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami were the senior-most. They were like the leaders of the pack, as they say. And Jiva Goswami was their nephew. They had a brother, Anupam, whose son is Jiva Goswami. So there you have, and he's the youngest. And you have Raghunath Bhatta, Raghunath Das Goswami, and you have Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And Gopal Bhatta Goswami had a very interesting connection with the Lord. He was born into a Brahmin family in South India, in a place known as Sri Rangakakshetra. So he had a dream, a vision of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu before Mahaprabhu ever came to his home. And he said the Lord appeared to him, and he had a vision of Mahaprabhu as a householder with long black hair, beautiful white cloth, very effulgent, radiant visage. And so he knew that the Lord was coming. And so when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was touring South India, he spent 4 months of Chaturmasya in Sri Rangakakshetra. And his father, Venkanta Bhatta, was a staunch follower in the good Vaishnava in the Sri Sampradaya lineage, Ramanujacharya. And in their conception, they worship Lakshmi Narayan, Lord Vishnu, and his eternal consort, Sri Devi, Lakshmi Devi, in the most opulent form as their Ishtadevata. And they had this conception that Krishna and other forms of the Lord were avatars of this Vishnu. Vishnu, for them, was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Krishna was his avatar. And this is a very common conception amongst many worshippers of Vishnu in India. Uh, so this was their Ishadevata. This, and of course, the brother of Venkatabhata is Prabodhanananda Saraswati, who is also another great acharya and great scholar of his time. So when Mahaprabhu came, he was staying in the home of Venkatabhata for those 4 months, and by his association and by his preaching, he inculcated in their hearts this mood of reverence and devotion to Krishna in his most sweet, intimate pastimes. Was able to convince them not only by by preaching, but also that cultivated within their hearts this mood of devotion to Krishna. So the family was very happy to take up the worship of Radha and Krishna, knowing that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Vishnu was his expansion, and Lakshmi Narayan was the expansion of Radha and Krishna. Ultimately the same personality, but in a sweeter, more intimate mood. And Gopal Bhatta, of course, interestingly, when Mahaprabhu appeared, he was a sannyasi with a shaved head, and he was very shocked to see the Mahaprabhu in that form, because he had a vision of him as a householder, and he was very attached to that vision of the Lord. So Mahaprabhu again temporarily manifested his form as a householder with long black hair. And Gopal Bhatta was so attached to Mahaprabhu that when Mahaprabhu took his leave and continued on his tour to South India and eventually would go back to, eventually wound up in Jagannath Puri, he wanted to go. And eventually, by the orders of Mahaprabhu and by the permission of his parents, he went to Vrindavan and took shelter of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. And he, of course, established the Radha Raman temple. Radha Raman deity, of course, was very unusual because as he was traveling to Vrindavan, he went further north into Nepal and was going along the Gandaki River. And he put his lota in the water. And he pulled out a shalagram had appeared in his pot. And he thought, oh, this was a mistake. I didn't intend to take a shalagram from the sacred river. So he put the shalagram back in the water, put his lota back in, and again the shalagram appeared. He said, okay, this is unusual, but he put the shalagram back in the water, put the lota in again, and the shalagram appeared a third time. So then he realized, okay, the Lord wants me to worship him in the form of this shalagram Shiva. But sometime later, as he was in Vrindavan, he desired to worship a threefold bending form of Krishna. A wealthy merchant had given him paraphernalia to worship a murti of Krishna, of holding a flute, threefold bending form like that. And he was lamenting that I don't have the proper deity. I put a crown on, it just falls off. I can't put the dhoti on. Where do you tie the dhoti on to a shalakam? So he's meditating. He said, I wish to worship you in a form as little Gopal, or as Krishna in that beautiful form. And the Lord said, I'll appear to you. No worries. So this shalagram then took the beautiful form that's today worshipped in Vrindavan of Sri Radha Raman temple. And in that temples also they have the samadhi of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. So in this way he established the beautiful murti of Radha Raman. Also the literatures, he was involved with some extremely important literary contributions in conjunction with the other Goswamis. So we read in Chaitanya Charitamrita that Mahaprabhu gave Sanatana Goswami an extensive teaching on the 64 angas, or the processes of devotional service. Okay? And he, of course, commanded Sanatana Goswami to compile the Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is the guidebook of Vaishnava etiquette and practices, beginning with taking initiation from Guru, chanting, deity worship, the observance of Ekadashi, all aspects of the do's and don'ts in Vaishnava culture. But, of course, Sanatana Goswami had begun the process of compiling this literature, but Gopal Bhatta Goswami completed that work in Sanatana Goswami's absence after his departure. So we have, of course, Sanatana Goswami, first, of course, primarily Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sanatana Goswami, but also Gopal Bhatta for the Hari Bhakti Vilas. Also, he himself, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, began to compile the notes for a series of essays in support of asserting the Srimad Bhagavatam and explaining the Vaishnava conception, the Gaudiya Vaishnava conception of Srimad Bhagavatam. And of course, those notes and that framework then became the Sat Sandarbhas of Jiva Goswami. So Jiva Goswami took these notes of Gopal Bhatta Goswami and composed the Sat Sandarbhas. Also, he composed a book called Satsar Deepika, Sakriya Deepika, which is basically the rites of passage and forms of initiation into Vaishnava culture. So in this way, Gopal Bhatta Goswami was among the very prominent followers of Mahaprabhu, and of the six Goswamis, contributed in so many ways to the mission of Mahaprabhu. So that's a little bit about Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. And we have just a little few minutes left. I also would like to leave a little space if anybody has any questions or if anything they want to contribute to the discussion. It's a very important day. It's very important when we have these appearance and disappearance days of our acharyas that we make a point to glorify them, to read about them, to sing about their glories. And this way we cultivate, because by contemplating and meditating on their virtues, on their qualities, hopefully maybe by their mercy some of those qualities will spill over to us. But if we neglect, then it's actually somewhat of an offense, because we cannot allow these days just to be, we notice it on the calendar, but we should actually thank you, Prabhu. So hopefully I was able to offer something to the community. I think somebody's writing something in the message, so. Yes, he was. Thank you, Prabhu. I'm very happy to share. So we have just maybe 5 minutes left, 6 minutes left. So I can either end with a short little kirtan, or if somebody has any questions or comments or realizations, we can entertain that. Oh, Induleka, can you unmute yourself?
Yes,
How
Hare
are you?
Krishna, Shamarupa Prabhu. It's good to
Hare
hear
Krishna. Good to
from
see
you and good to
your
see you.
voice.
I was listening to your class yesterday, but then my dad called and I had to skip it. But yesterday you gave very nice class too, Adina Tarani.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought I saw your name pop
But
up.
I was just about to ask why it's important to remember these days, and you answered without even me asking. So thank you for that.
Oh, okay. Anything you'd like to add beyond that? Any realization
No,
you'd
this
like to?
was very, very like a good point for my consciousness to hear that, it's important if we don't remember this is offensive. So kind of
Mm.
it inspired me to be more attentive. Thank you for that.
Oh, well, if I can
And
offer
it's
that,
good to
oh, well, thank you.
good
If
to
I can offer,
hear from you.
if I could provide that service, yeah, because one of the padashaya, that if the part of the process of devotional service is to follow in the footsteps of the Mahajans, right? Well, if we don't know about them, we don't know what their glories are. How can we follow in their footsteps? So that key element in the process of bhakti is to follow in their footsteps. So by hearing about their qualities, because we have to meditate on something, right? So we can meditate on somebody's faults, or we can meditate on the glories of those who are exemplars. So, well, thank you. I'm glad. It's heartening for me here that I was able to provide that little service to you, Mataji. Um, Anybody else before? Okay, well, maybe I'll just take a couple minutes. We'll just do a quick little kirtan because I think it's a nice way to close out the class. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Nitya Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitya Gaura Haribo, Nitya Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitya Gaura Haribo. Gaura Premanandi.
Hari Hari Bol.
Shri Dayadev Goswami Trubha Mahotsava ki
Jai.
Shri Gopal Bhatta Goswami Avirbhava Mahotsava ki
Jai.
Gaur Premanandi.
Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. So thank you, dear devotees, for allowing me to share some thoughts and some words with you. And thank you, Prabhu, for your kind words. And have a wonderful evening. And we look forward to someday all coming back together in the same space and honor Prasad and chant together and be in each other's association. Vanchakalpa Trubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evicha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hey, Bhima Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.